Now, if you had a choice to be part of a team of competent individuals who had a lot of fun doing their own thing, or being on a high-performing team where you engage to produce together, which would you choose?
I saw the potential in the organization and the potential to get us to a whole new level in terms of performance. I saw what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. You can say I was a man on a mission. However, I didn't know how to get there.
It's great to have you with us in this Holding to Account program. And I want to make sure you walk away with 3 very specific skills. The first one is I want you to have the language of high performance. And it's a very specific language that allows you to communicate in a shortcut manner with speed and velocity to get the job done. Secondly, I want you to have greater power and freedom to make a difference. And that comes through 100% accountability. And you'll learn more about that throughout the sessions. And third, I want you to be part of a winning team. And over the years of working with so many different people and companies, I've come to recognize that people, more than anything else, want to make a difference, and they want to do their best. And that means high performance, being part of a winning team. Welcome to Holding to Account, Segment 1, and I know that I have a group here that is very familiar with building a culture of accountability. Is that true? Yeah. So I want to talk to each one of you and find out, tell us your first name, just a little bit about yourself, and what you want to get out of this Holding to Account session. So Louise, let's start with you.
Well, I'm Louise, and I'd like to learn how to be more intentional and to help my team be more intentional.
And when you say the word intentional, what do you mean?
I mean by being accountable for what they want, what they need, what they're doing, and not letting things happen by default.
Okay, so being specific. Is that one thing that you're saying?
Being specific, but thinking through things and not maybe blaming others for their own projects or things that are happening around them.
All right, so starting something from a position of accountability where you actually own the project, you own the results, and rather than pointing the finger, you're saying to be intentional is to be purposeful in producing the results through accountability. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, great, Louise, thank you. All right. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, I'm Larry, and I guess for me what I'm looking at out of this session on Holding to Account is the ability to have meaningful conversations with someone, and both professionally and personally, where I can have the discussion or the tough discussion with them and not leave either of us feeling damaged afterward.
And that's not easy to do, is it?
No, it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm. So in the past, before you started getting involved in a culture of accountability, when you would have those tough or sensitive conversations, Larry, how would you handle them?
I try to avoid them at first.
Isn't that true? How many people in this group here would say you would have avoided those conversations before? And that's a typical reaction. We avoid tough and difficult situations. And when you study accountability, what does that then allow you to do?
Well, it allows me to use the discussion around my perceptions and talk to them about the issue. So I deal with it right away before something builds to a bigger issue.
Yes, and I could say, because we have people watching that haven't been exposed necessarily to a culture of accountability, that it gives you a shortcut communication, doesn't it? If you and Louise have exactly the same skill set, the same shared language, the same model for communicating, does it not give you a way of having a shortcut communication between each other?
Yes, very much so.
Absolutely.
Because you know where you're headed and you can follow it. It's shorter, easier, and efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Larry. All right. How about Janita?
My name is Janita, and what I'd like to get out of this session is learning how to always be 100% more interested in committed partnerships and working with others than perhaps my own ego, and what it'd be easier to do for myself, and always putting my team first. I think it becomes easier and easier that we learn. It takes just as much energy to get in each other's way than it does to be committed to each other all the time. So learning more and more techniques on how to make myself better in all those areas.
You've actually said a lot, and you've covered a lot of points here. You introduced a term called committed partnerships. So a committed partnership, let's just define it right now, means being committed to the success of each person, correct? So if I were to net out what I heard you say, Janita, what you're saying is you want to be able to master putting your ego aside and having your needs drive the agenda and look to the broader group and having mutual needs, mutual accomplishments drive the agenda.
Exactly.
Is that fair to say?
Fair.
Okay, great. All right, Norman, how about you?
Well, my name is Norman, and I think the greatest learning I want to get out of this session is probably get even a greater understanding of what a culture built on accountability really means to me, so being able to be more accountable and help people around me being more accountable as well and help them developing in that culture.
So helping you to understand it better and helping others to understand it more.
Yeah.
Yes, and you brought up a good point here because building a culture of accountability is an evolutionary process. It is a journey, not a destination, which means every step of the way we learn more, we understand more, we apply it differently. It just never ends. So you're right on the journey. You want to keep learning and applying and growing, and since it never stops, that's a perfect spot to be.
Thanks.
All right, and we have Faith, correct?
Yeah, I'm Faith, and I really want to just continue to learn how to use the cultural practices more effectively in my day-to-day work.
And the cultural practices are what you've been using in your company. You have 10 specific behavioral guidelines that, such as talking straight responsibly, right? Coaching each other. And those cultural practices remind you of how to interact in a way that is effective, productive, and efficient.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Warren, what about you?
My name's Warren. I think the thing that I would like to get out of the session is learning how I can contribute to the team more. I think we have a pretty good team now, but I know that there's more that we can do to work more effectively together.
And you want to be able to get the team to maximize high-performance teams, the team working well together?
Yes, so that we're not working against each other, that a lot of the defensive mechanisms that we use sometimes are put behind us, and we don't spend a lot of time working on that. It's dealing with the specific problem.
Yes, and how many people in this group ever get defensive? Ever? All of us, right? Mike, that hand went up kind of slow. Do you ever get defensive? Yeah, well, go ahead. Tell us about you.
My name's Mike, and I want to explore the relationship between people and results and understand what the difference is between performing at a high level and being high performance. Looking at the language we use and trying to move away from some of that non-committed language to moving into an area where there are commitments and people are taking ownership and being accountable for their results.
Yes, and I love what you brought up right there because we really do have a lot of this based in language. Our language actually shapes reality. It controls what we say, and it produces the type of response we get. So there is a language in high performance, and that's what you're talking about. Yeah, and that language means that we're going to get rid of all hedging. And just a little preview. Hedging, one of the most common hedging words out there is I'll try. And there is no commitment in try. There are more hedging words in the dictionary than there are any commitment-based words. That will tell you something about overall culture in general. So we're going to look at how language impacts. So Mike, thank you. Now, is it Ramey? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Excellent.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ramey. What I would like to get out of this session is first just a better understanding of what full accountability is, but more importantly, I would like to know how my own I'd like to explore how my own reactions and my own behaviors get in the way of becoming more accountable and hopefully become a better leader and a person from that.
Excellent. So are you willing to take a look at your blind spots, things that others can see that maybe you can't?
Exactly.
Well, I'd say, and we've heard from everybody, have we? Everybody? So here's what I'm hearing from this group. You really do understand what a culture of accountability is, but I'm going to start from the ground floor so we can go over some things, and you're going to learn new things as we dialogue about this. So let's start as though you don't know what a culture of accountability is. So let's start new, because that's the way that the mind learns best. And what I hear from everybody here is you're willing to allow me to coach you. Is that true? Do I have permission to coach you? Yep. Okay. You also have permission to coach me, because you're going to see blind spots that I can't see. So let's make this a partnership together. Let's have us have a committed partnership in dialoguing. Is that fair? All right. Now, do I have your permission to push the edge? Do you know what I mean by that one? Anybody want to take a guess at that? Mike, what do you think?
I'd be disappointed if you did.
All right, so what we mean by pushing the edge is if I see something or hear something that we want to just push in further to have us as a group see and learn something different, we're gonna take it to that extent. That make sense? Yeah. All right, good. Well, welcome, and we're going to get started on segment number 1. Let's talk about the difference between competence and high performance. But before we do that, I've got a Monopoly game here. So when I say the word or you look at the game Monopoly, what comes to your mind?
Money.
Well, I wasn't thinking about that answer, but okay.
Game of chance.
There it is. chance. In fact, that's what Monopoly is, right? Roll the dice, game of chance, buy boardwalk, sell Park Place, whatever you're going to do. But here's the difference between competence and high performance. Competence is a game of default, what we would say a game of chance, which means it occurs by the nature of design of every organization. Every organization goes after hiring competent people, correct? So in one way, we say it's default. It happens. It's nothing you have to really put a lot of effort on because it's part of any good business design. Is that fair to say? Yep. All right. We hire good people. We bring them in. We have competent people. Now, a culture of competence is really different than a culture of high performance. So we could say back at your jobs, at work, do you have competent people? Yes. Do competent people necessarily work well together? In fact, can't you have highly competent individuals who are superstars in their own right that do not work as a team? And you've run into that, haven't you? Okay, so let's think about this. When we think about competence, I want you to think about the Monopoly game. Think about it, it's default, it's by chance. So competence, you could have people that comply. Do you ever have people that comply, that go along with something, but their heart's really not in it? Okay, so we've got compliance. Do you have blame and finger pointing? Yep, and that happens too. Anytime you have highly competent individuals, you can have finger pointing and blame. How about turf protection? We, they thinking, protecting their areas. Has anybody in this room ever done that? Yes. Yeah, okay. Probably. And that's a natural instinct, isn't it, too? And then the final one is when you have competence, you do get better. You can get incrementally better, but do you ever make quantum jumps in your ability to perform in a competent culture?
No, it's usually a climb rather than
it's a climb, isn't it, Louise? Yeah, it's a step-by-step, incremental. So we'll start with this. You already have a company that is competent, right? You have competent individuals. You perform well. Your company's doing well. High performance requires that you have competence as the foundation. It's the baseline. But high performance is an entirely different game because it is not a game of chance. It is a game by design. So now let's talk about high performance. When you have a team of superstars and you put them together, you can think of an NBA basketball team and you put together the best basketball players and then you put them on a newly formed team and everyone is an individual superstar. When you send them out to play in the Olympics, do they necessarily bring home the gold? Nope. In fact, often they don't. Why not? They're competent. Remy?
They're individuals.
But what does that mean? They're individuals. Why aren't they bringing home the gold?
There's no team. They're not working together.
No. In fact, they may be working against each other. And why is that? We have superstars. They're highly competent.
Because their egos are bigger than the game.
Chances are, yeah, their focus is on themselves. Remember how Louise said you wanted to get the focus off yourself and not drive an agenda, but look at the team? When you have superstars and they're individuals, they are focused on their own needs, aren't they? Their own agenda. It means I only go to Louise to the extent that she can help me achieve my agenda. In high performance, I go to Mike because there's a mutual agenda we're going to work with. So here's the first thing we know. Competence doesn't get us to high-performing state. It will give us good business results. We can certainly produce, good performance, but it's not going to take us to the pinnacle of where we want to go. That's high performance. So let's talk about what high performance is. What's the difference when I say the words between compliance, people who go along with something, and alignment? What does that mean to you? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? Compliance versus alignment. Faith?
I think compliance is when people go forward and do something, but not necessarily having come to agreement to do it. There actually may be underground resistance, where alignment would be where the person has made a conscious choice to go forward in partnership with you. And even though they may not have initially agreed with the direction or the decision, they've had a chance to have been heard, and they've made a decision that they're going to go forward.
They made a conscious choice.
A conscious choice, yeah.
So we could say that compliance often is being politically correct, thinking we're doing the right thing, knowing that we better go along with it. But alignment is actually choosing to get behind someone or something, a position, a stand, a point of view, as though it were yours in the beginning. Exactly. Is that fair to say?
Yes, exactly. And there is no there is no resistance.
At that point, it's heart and mind, isn't it?
Exactly.
Heart and mind is involved. Exactly. So we could say that compliance is intellectually, it's politically correct for me to go along with whatever's going on. That might be behind compliance, right? But in alignment, it sounds like my heart and my mind are both engaged. Exactly. Is that a fair?
Resistance.
And there's no resistance. Does alignment mean we agree with the choice that was made? No. It means we're willing to support it. May means we may not have chosen that choice ourselves, but we're willing to support it, correct? And we'll talk about alignment more later. In high performance, we say that high performance is based upon accountability. And it's also based upon partnership. Now, that's the difference between superstars and highly competent people. So high performance is based upon partnership, and it doesn't produce incremental results when you have a team. Let's say your team doesn't even have the level of competence that another company had in individuals, but that had a high-performing team. Who's going to win the game? A high-performing team or highly competent individuals? Who's going to win?
The high-performing team.
And why is that, Larry?
Because they'll be working together, and even though they may not be quite as competent, it'll exceed the individual competence.
Absolutely. A high-performing team, even if you take the individual competence and it's a lower level than a group of individuals with higher competence, the high-performing team is going to produce the unprecedented business results each and every time.
Loretta, earlier on I talked about how frustrated I was. I saw the potential in the organization and the potential to get us to a whole new level in terms of performance. I saw what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. You can say I was a man on a mission. However, I didn't know how to get there. And I worked with about 4 different sets of consulting firms, and I wasn't getting what I wanted in terms of the tools. It wasn't until Greg Honey introduced me to yourself and Malandro Communication, I saw how we were going to get there.
Yes, because you had everything else. Here's what I recall, John. You and I had several discussions, and with our group too, about your core values. And they stood out to me as respect, integrity, fairness. You can add to that list. Those are the ones I remember.
I look at the respect and integrity were 2, I call it pillars for me. And if you got respect and you got integrity, you'll have the trust and you'll have the other values that will go with you to make a good, solid person.
So what I saw, I'll just tell you what I saw when we started working together. I saw that you had all the core values. You had all the fundamental beliefs that were necessary for 100% accountability and for having a high-performance culture. What was missing was that they were not articulated, they were not said out loud, and they were not put in the form of cultural practices so that people knew how to behave. And then what I recall happened is we had a discussion then, how could we take the core values that you stood so strongly for and put them into cultural practices? How do you remember it?
That's a very accurate description because you're starting to talk about the how. And I look at the 10 cultural practices we have today. Lots of debate around whether we should have 3, 5, 7, or 10. But I do remember how much time we spent on looking at my core values and say, how do we translate those in? And we settled on 10 without a lot of discussion throughout the organization. And I, at that point in time, and remain today, am very committed, though those are our cultural practices for the corporation, and we won't waver on those.
Well, in fact, you have unshakable resolve about that. I think you have unshakable resolve about it because those cultural practices are consistent with your core values. But you tell me.
No, very much so, Loretta, because I look at those 10 cultural practices, any one of them, I can find a core value of mine in there, and I clearly want to be able to share with all the employees in the corporation what my core values are and put a common standard out there as it relates to how we're going to work as a corporation.
And you've done one thing more than that, too. Many things more than that. One that stands in mind is now you've brought cultural practices out to the employees, and they see their core values in it, too.
Oh, very much
They
so.
have shared values very strong like yours.
They have shared values because there is a lot of respect. There is a lot of integrity and loyalty within the corporation. We have a great group of people right across the corporation. And what the cultural practices have done, we put them in writing, they're explicit, and now they can hold on to those and saying, I can see myself in there, and I can see how this makes a difference in our corporation.